It wasn't that long ago that every major automaker was pledging a full EV future, with brands like Ford, General Motors, Mercedes, Volvo, Jaguar, Land Rover, and BYD all signing pledges to end gas cars in 2040. I even remember vividly Toyota catching a lot of flack for not pledging the same thing. Rental car companies dove headfirst into electric vehicles, the US government expanded the EV tax credit to foster this growth, and then we all blinked. And in what felt like no time at all, a full EV future came to a screeching halt with the EV tax credit officially ending a couple of days ago. And so in this video, I'm going to be breaking down the three main reasons why I believe that EVs, while still in demand, haven't really met expectations that were set 5 years ago. And this includes the politicization of EVs, consumer sentiment, and Tesla. Let's dive into it. Now, one could argue that the car market isn't inherently political, or at least it shouldn't be. And yet, one of the more oddly politicized aspects of our lives is electric vehicles. Electric vehicles have long been a weirdly political issue, from whether you drive one or not, whether you are a pro-EV or not, and even which EV you drive. EV tax credit and a government-pushed EV quota and goals, spending bills with EV infrastructure built into them, this has all certainly fostered an environment for political division, especially as some politicians pour fuel on the fire.
But I will tell you, they want to take your car industry away. They're going to take it away. They're going to do the electric vehicle nonsense. You know, you put a little circle around your house. You can't go outside the circle. You'll never come back.
And others have pushed for a more robust EV future.
I'm pleased to announce we're approving funding for the first 35 states, including Michigan, to build their own electric charging infrastructure throughout their state.
And while your political affiliation certainly shouldn't be a factor on whether or not you decide to buy an EV, it oftentimes is, either subconsciously or consciously. In fact, according to a study done earlier this year, Democrats are buying EVs at 5 times the rate of Republicans. Only 20% of Republican voters say that they're seriously considering an EV purchase, while 34% said they would never buy one. And Tesla ratings have plummeted with Democrats as Elon Musk has previously and publicly aligned with MAGA, and now Musk has a more favorable rating with gas vehicle owners compared to EV ones. And I don't want to turn this video into a deep dive on why Republicans don't like EVs and why Democrats do, but instead what I do want to point out is just the sheer fact that this has undoubtedly become a political issue, a really large one. And this has led to the perception by a large group of people here in the United States that the government and the EV industry is trying to kill fossil fuels and the jobs associated with it, push EVs down our throats, and force your next vehicle you purchase to be an electric one, which has in turn led to campaign promises like this one.
And I will start by terminating Kamala's insane electric vehicle mandate on day one. It's killing our car industry.
Which has then led to it actually coming to an end earlier this week. And this will no doubt affect EV demand and EV prices throughout the entire country. But what's interesting is that the US government incentivizing a specific type of vehicle is nothing new. In fact, the US has been sticking their nose into what vehicle we buy for a very, very long time. For example, the fact that large SUVs and trucks have taken over US roadways, yeah, that's not a coincidence. Tax incentives like Section 179 or CAFE standards have created an environment that fosters automakers to make large vehicles and for consumers to buy them. And I'm not here to say whether there should or should not be an incentive for buying a specific type of vehicle. Instead, what I'm doing is just pointing out the double standard, which is that government involvement into the vehicles that we buy and incentives associated with different vehicles, this is absolutely nothing new, and it has been happening for literally decades. But for some reason, these issues in the past haven't been so much of a Democrat versus Republican issue as they have become today. And I do want to point out that the topic of CAFE standards hasn't been met without pushback. When the government introduced CAFE standards in the 1970s, consumers pushed back because they wanted to drive their car that they wanted to drive, and they felt smaller cars were underpowered and unsafe, which possibly assisted in the loosening of standards later on down the road, which then fostered the growth of large vehicles that we see today. But the fact that EVs are so politicized is a primary reason why electric vehicles have historically been targeted in campaigns and legislation and eventually leading to the demise of the EV tax credit altogether. But it is also a bit of a double-edged sword, because you could absolutely argue, and it is arguably a fact, that EV demand went up with the EV tax credit, and thus the politics associated with it was actually an advantage. And without political spotlight, EVs will never stand a chance due to the need for more EV infrastructure, something requiring bipartisan legislation. However, we also can't argue the fact that in some ways politics has hindered EVs, as EV legislation has ping-ponged to and from the chopping block depending on who is the majority leader. Which brings us to our next topic, which is consumer sentiment. In researching for this video, I found a 2008 New York Times article talking about the consumer concern for hybrids, more specifically the hybrid battery bankrupting hybrid owners due to expensive repairs and replacement costs. But even as I began to dive deeper into this topic and some of the different changes that have happened in the car market over the last few decades, one thing has become abundantly clear, and that is consumers do not like change. From seatbelts, which were deemed uncomfortable and unnecessary, airbags, which were deemed dangerous and expensive to repair, emission regulations of the 70s and 80s, which took the fun out of driving, and of course EVs and hybrids. Hell, if it was up to the consumer, we may still be driving the classic Model T. The point is, consumers are slow to adapt, or at the very least, slow to embrace. And when it comes to EVs, the major concerns come down to things like battery replacement costs, price of vehicles, range anxiety, and overall charging infrastructure. In fact, in a recent study from this year, home EV access is even a roadblock, with EV ownership favoring homeowners rather than renters, and people with access to a garage rather than those who either don't have a garage or use their garage for general storage rather than a place to store or park their car. Someone with access to a garage, and even more importantly, access to the outlet needed to charge an EV, this is one of the biggest factors on whether or not somebody would consider to buy an EV, and this is a huge barrier. And whether these consumer concerns about EVs are valid or not, it doesn't change the fact that they are very real and they are absolutely preventing people from buying electric vehicles. And unless automakers can change the reality of that situation by making batteries less expensive to replace, increasing range and charging accessibility, and decreasing EV prices, or they could possibly just change the perception of these roadblocks. Until this happens, for many people, EVs will continue to be a tough sell. And last but not least is Tesla, which, believe it or not, I do think has contributed to the mellowness of EVs over the last couple of years. Now, before Elon Musk and Tesla stands come out in droves, let me preface this next point by saying this. If you've seen my channel before, then you know that I am not a huge fan of Elon Musk. But I can also absolutely acknowledge the fact that Elon Musk and Tesla have done more for EVs than anyone else combined. Elon made EVs cool, he brought them to the mainstream, and he and Tesla made a product that has set the bar for everyone else, propelling EVs to the main stage. However, Tesla and Elon Musk have also contributed to the skepticism of EVs in the last few years. And both of these things can be true at once. Let me explain. Poor resale values and rapid depreciation is, in my opinion, a major reason why EV adoption has not met initial expectation, and this is a problem that was accelerated by Tesla. Some of you may remember, others may not, but for a number of years, especially earlier on in mainstream EV adoption, EVs, and more specifically Teslas, who were really the only major player in the space at the time, these were considered cars that depreciated very, very well. In fact, in the past, Tesla could be viewed as an investment, and it was ranked one of the best cars at holding its value. And in years past, it was very easy to buy a Tesla new, hold on to that vehicle, and potentially limit, or in some cases, eliminate depreciation costs altogether. However, this all changed a few years ago when Tesla abruptly started discounting prices, after years of saying that they never would. And this caused not only Tesla's value to plummet, but EVs in general to plummet as well. And the EV slide has sort of continued to cause major issues ever since. Not only with Tesla resale values, but with Tesla and EV owners who now find themselves severely upside down on their vehicles. In 2022, the Tesla Model 3 Long Range had an MSRP of about $57,000, and today you can buy one for under $25,000. A 2024 Lucid Air, which once had an MSRP of $71,000, now you can purchase it for under 60 slightly used. Or one of my favorite examples, but also one of the most extreme, is the Audi e-tron GT, which has an MSRP of starting at $125,000, and this vehicle can be purchased for under 60 grand today. EVs generally have absolutely terrible depreciation, and this has rightfully so spooked consumers. And while we certainly can't blame all of the depreciation on Tesla, Tesla price cuts not only accelerated the problem, but they also put a massive spotlight on it as well. And while this can be great news for somebody who's wanting an excellent car for a really great price through heavily depreciated EVs on the used market, it isn't great news for somebody who's looking to buy an EV and may have a hard time justifying that purchase because of poor depreciation. Now, I do want to end this video by saying EV demand is growing. I know if you look at headlines and if you just read some bullet point news, you may think that EV demand is crashing, and this is absolutely not the case. Over the last few years, year over year, EV purchases and EV registrations have been growing exponentially. However, there has been a real and starking shift in the tone around EVs, and the idealistic image of an all-electric vehicle future is all but dead. And while, as I stated, EVs are growing, the demand just simply hasn't met those idealistic expectations that automakers and lawmakers set a few years ago. And I believe that the reasons that I've outlined in this video could be why. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.